it's in human nature to deal with a horrible event through humor, because you can't live in a bunker in your mind.
Everything was on fire, and I was just driving my car, delivering stuff, volunteering and everything.
I didn't invent Coca-Cola refugee. I have heard it from locals. They demand to speak Russian. And I feel like that's a strange attitude. That's, of the imperial kind.
Did you have to go to the bunker?
No. Nobody went to the bunker. So that's my war story. Got a little bit cold.
Russian? You're a Coca-Cola refugee. Do you know this?
Victor, so nice to see you. We are very happy to have you here. Thanks for taking the time. We know how crazy your schedule is lately. So, I don't know, to our dear viewers, this is our podcast. This is Victor. He's the comedian. He's been on tour for last 4.5 years. He's a great supporter of Ukraine, and he's now here. To the left of me is Jerry. He's our editor. And me, Zhenya Melnik, we already know each other, I believe so.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Victor.
We're super glad that you're here. And I know it's been about a week that you're having shows in Ukraine. It began in Lviv. How was your overall experience?
Actually, embarrassingly nice. I feel bad going back home and telling people I went to a war zone and I had great cheesecake and amazing coffee and met nice people and it was warm and there was no power cuts. And yeah, we just had one siren, I think, not last night, 2 nights ago, where we were waiting for our food and then we had to get out for like 5 minutes and then we went back in.
Did you have to go to the bunker?
No, nobody went to the bunker. Everybody just went outside. They were looking around, checking their phones, and then they realized, the drones got shut down.
Well, that's the surreality of it. I mean, I've been working at the war zone for the last 3 years, and it's
so you understand what I went through.
Yeah, big time. I do, because 7 hours from Kiev, and you were in some. You're in some war-torn place.
Yeah.
Were you expecting something different, or in terms of war?
No, this is my second time in Ukraine. Me and my colleague Fedor Ikelar, a comedian with whom I've been touring through Ukraine. We came here 2 years ago, 9 months since the full-scale invasion. So then it was a little bit more intense.
Kiev right now, and in the morning the Russians bombed the water supply for Kiev, so there's no running water. The water is not running, and you might think this is not a problem because you can drink water from a bottle that you buy in the store. Yeah, but this is full. What do you do about this?
So this time was even better. This is the thing. I feel bad saying this, but the people have been greatly welcoming, very accommodating. We've stayed in decent places, warm. We had no issues.
We are also very happy that you had such a super experience. And
I'm
also
not out yet. Next is Moldova.
Really.
It might be worse in Moldova than here.
Not gonna come on. I'm not allowed.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been to Lviv and you've been to Kiev. How could you compare these two places?
They're two different cities in two different parts of town.
Yeah, but
one is a strategic point that is probably more attacked than the other. It's nice. I love the pastry here. I'm a big fan of pastry.
But what about the crowds?
But what about the pastry? Sorry. The crowds are amazing. Very supportive people. Way more people than I ever expected. In total, we did 2 shows on Sunday in Lviv, 1 on Monday, and 2 shows here in Kiev. Altogether, about 2,000 people came to the shows. We managed to raise over 20,000 euros. So it's incredible. It's the support from the Ukrainian community has been fantastic. Not just in Ukraine, which is fantastic to see that people are coming to basically support their own people, but outside of Ukraine as well. Both me, Fedor, and Georges Degumois, we all have Ukrainian people coming to our shows and being very nice and supportive. So the Ukrainian community has been very kind to us.
Are you Romanian or have you just decided for Romanians? exactly the Ukrainian attitude. This is my second time here in Ukraine. The first time I was here, people were so nice, it was uncomfortable. Like people were too nice. People were like, oh, are you okay? Here's some food. Oh, you need to take a shower. You look like you need to take a shower. You know, sleep here. Sorry about the water, but, you know.
I know you said that it's like people are so nice and maybe not enough feeling of war. Not enough.
For us, because for you, it's a total difference from the first time to now. It's aside from the actual war and destruction in the east and the drones and the bombings, the psychological war is you can see a drain on the local population.
You know, it's a like laughter is like the most common. It's the first coping mechanism I think a person can get. Me, first 10 days of the war, I was basically a stand-up comedian. Everything was on fire, and I was just driving my car, delivering stuff, volunteering, and everything. So, did you feel that actually when you were speaking to Ukrainians, or maybe did you feel like this when you laugh because you don't want to cry, like this?
No, I think it's a human reaction to a traumatic event. This has happened throughout the world and throughout history. You're from here, from Ukraine, right? So our parents and our grandparents went through communism and the Soviet Union with jokes, right? They used to tell jokes in the line for bread at 3 a.m, and that's how they dealt with it. And this is still that, right? Like Anne Frank had jokes in her diary. Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but her father took out the page with her jokes because some of the jokes were about him going to Paris and getting chlamydia. But she told jokes as well. You know, it's in human nature to deal with a horrible event through humor, because you can't live in a bunker in your mind. You have to, you know, this is the normality of everything that's happening here. Restaurants are open, cafes are open, people are trying to live their life while this is happening. Because this is happening while life is taking part. It's taking place.
Would you consider going closer to the front line?
I don't want this to be a sensationalist type of thing where like, oh, we're going to the front lines to it's not
war tourism.
Yeah. It's I don't find that interesting. I think the fact that we come here and I've organized throughout the last 3 years, organized various shows for charity, also for Voices of Children, throughout Europe, wherever I could. The enthusiasm for the war is really gone in the rest of Europe, specifically for this one, and specifically since Israel and Palestine has started. That is horrendous on another level, and people are very, very much horrified by what's happening there.
Russian! I saw your flag outside, it's upside down. And then the Albanian eagle is on it as well. In high definition. And what brings you to Belgrade? War. The war? Oh, what happened? Someone just realized what happened. You're a Coca-Cola refugee, do you know this? For the Russians who left Russia in the last 2 years for moral reasons, right? Because you couldn't stand by Putin when he invaded Ukraine for the second time. You were there when he invaded the first time, but the second time you were like, I can't take this anymore. I accept when he invaded Georgia, Syria, but when I can't order stuff on Amazon, my morals start here.
I got a feeling that I was going through your Instagram, and at some point I had a feeling that you were a little bit more tolerant to, like, you were still making fun of Russians. Did your perception of like Russians change throughout this like full-scale invasion? How did it work for you? What's your...
Well, aside from my visit here, what I've learned from the war, what I've learned from meeting Russians, talking to Russian comedians that have escaped for political reasons, I have been through other former Soviet countries. I have been to places where Russians have fled to since the war here has started. And I have met them, and I have met the local people, and they have told me stories. I didn't invent Coca-Cola refugee. I have heard it from locals. I heard it from someone in Georgia. When we went to Georgia, I was talking to the locals, and they were talking about the Russians coming in as if they owned the place, because they used to. So it got me very interested in the attitude of the Russians fleeing war for supposedly, political reason, that they're against the war and, they're moral refugees. At the same time, going to places and being very rude to the people that are welcoming them, and very dismissive, and still refusing to acknowledge anything about the locals, refusing to speak the local language. I have Ukrainian friends who are comedians, and I've spoken to them, and they've told me that it's very difficult for them to talk to other Russian comedians because they refuse to speak Ukrainian. They demand to speak Russian. And I feel like that's a strange attitude. That's, of the imperial kind. It's a mindset. It's not the people. People are not born in any way, but the story that they tell themselves about who they are and who others are, I think that really affects the way that they go about stuff. But again, the crowd work things are all voluntary. Even if I'm making fun of Russians, those Russians have volunteered to take part in the show, and to engage in the show and to engage in my jokes. So the people that are in the video, they're not the people that are maybe the ones that I'm criticizing. They're just a symbol.
What's your name, Russian man? Anthony. Anthony from Russia. Anton, can you say hello to Anton? Сука, блядь, ты Anton! What do you think we get wrong about Russia? We make jokes, but I want to give people the opportunity to kind of, say some things that maybe we might not know. Or maybe you think we get wrong.
I think people mostly get wrong the drinking part.
People get wrong the drinking part.
Yeah, the drinking part.
So we all think that you're all alcoholics.
Yeah.
And that's wrong.
That is, mostly incorrect for the new generation.
So the young people, they don't get drunk, they just invade the sovereign country.
Okay, Victor, you started your show last night with a 2-word immortal phrase, fuck Putin.
Yeah.
And of course the crowd loved it. Huge applause.
Yeah.
Do you open with that line in every European city?
I used to for about a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. Since the war here started, I used to start with that. But then I saw that I was starting with that, and then people were like, again.
So when you mentioned earlier that the enthusiasm for the war has declined, you notice it even in such a reaction to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that it's a disservice for the rest of the show to kind of start the shows after a while with fuck Vladimir Putin, and then I talk about the conflict here in the rest of the show. So instead of just putting it at the front, it's throughout the show. It's peppered throughout the show. My views and opinions on what's happening.
But do you make jokes about Ukraine secretly when you're not in Ukraine? Like what kind?
Just whatever comes in.
Because I went through your Instagram, it was all very Ukrainian, pro-Ukrainian. I didn't find anything mean.
Nothing mean.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, because some jokes are appropriate for live, to be in the room in that context with the people where we understand each other, regardless of where people are from. Let's have this moment together. And then there's a totally different medium to post it online and for those jokes to be used against certain people.
So I think we spoke about it before the camera were on. So how would you define your red lines in terms of making jokes?
Basically, it's not necessarily a red line.
How do you moderate yourself?
If the people are there, I talk about them. If they're not there, I don't talk about them. Basically, if people are there and I can tell the jokes to their face, then I tell the jokes. For example, I don't do many shows in native English-speaking countries. Sometimes when I do shows in the UK, a lot of the people that are at the show are immigrants. So I ask them to volunteer. Where are you from? And they tell me, and then I start joking about that place and their culture and their background. If they're not there, I don't bring them up. Just, can you imagine going to Bristol and going what about them Indians? And it's just white people in the room and they're like, yeah. It's just,
you need a Madhu. You need a Madhu in the room.
Yeah. she was an Indian lady last night at the show, who was very sweet and kind to take part in the show and to kind of be good humored. But if she wasn't there, I wouldn't bring up Indians just randomly. So that's kind of a rule that I have. I joke with the people in the room. The shows that I usually do are very international. Here, because of the situation, there's not a lot of internationals who live here who would come to the shows. There are a few, but they work in all sorts of diplomatic, secret service stuff that they don't want to be publicly known, like, hey, I'm from this country and, I'm spying for whoever. But outside of Ukraine, it's international audiences, and I go through everybody's country. We actually, the crowd work section of the show is growing every day because everybody comes and wants to, hey, let's talk about Kuwait and let's talk about Burkina Faso. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it.
Kuwait. What's your name, Kuwait? Jafar, like from Aladdin. That's very good. I saw your carpet parked outside.
I couldn't help but notice you. Do you have like some degree in international affairs? Because you're extremely smart.
Oh no!
But
I say stupid stuff and people correct me, and then
but still,
in
you
order
have to be very educated for
We're
that.
sure you're very educated.
No, I argue with people, and in order to argue back, I do a little bit of research to know that my responses.
What do you go through, like these, like, I don't know, list of the countries and like in alphabetical order? But
no, as soon as I get into trouble for a joke, I have a lot of people just going like, you'll find out that historically, we were nice to our slaves, and then I go like, look, the shows here are not the shows that I usually do. The shows that I usually do, they're very heavy, they're very moody, they're pretentious bullshit that I'm saying. Here it's just let's have a little bit of fun together. It's not about necessarily doing what I usually do at my shows, just to have a little bit of fun, a night out. It's not the moment nor the time.
Also charity in a way. I mean, people definitely need
of course, yeah. And it's like someone's going through an accident and you're there going like, yeah, but what about this other problem? And
But you just touched on the format of your show.
Yeah.
You're talking about having so many guests and then being alone.
Mm-hmm.
So usually the format is...
I'm alone, and I start the show by doing crowd work to warm up the crowd, to get to know the crowd, to show the people how diverse the crowd is from how many places, to kind of start from just very simplistic views on everybody's culture. Start with stereotypes, start with very simple things, and then build on that, and then we end up with the show into a different place but we have to start from something that we know, and that's where the show starts, with talking to the audience, and actually the audience seeing that the people that I'm talking to are much more than all of these simplistic things that they might think about them. Sometimes I have special guests. I have local comedians. I have traveling comedians. I try to support the young comedians in Europe to give them stage time, to teach them whatever I have learned over the last years, so that they can do it themselves. Then there's a break, and then the show is the second part, where I'm like, yeah, but what about the war? All that pretentious stuff that I do.
But talking about stereotypes, what are the most common stereotypes about Ukraine that you joke or you hear?
Eastern Europeans, outside of this area, nobody knows the difference between anybody here.
Yes, there is. I saw this bit from Brazilian comedian named Vidura.
Vidura Rajapaksa. He's a friend. He's a very nice guy.
Most of my favorites are the ex-USSR, Eastern European countries. No, genuinely, because y'all are white, but you're off-white. You look like you should be having a good time. But you have plenty of reasons not to be.
Why is it so?
Communism, Soviet Union, obviously, yeah.
I knew
it's
the answer.
It's the big bear, right? It's under the shadow that we've been raised, right? Communism affected our lives in ways that we're still trying to understand. For example, I found out that, you guys were part of the Soviet Union, we were communists, but still the same thing. One of the things that I've learned quite late was that the communists were trying to affect every part of people's lives. So they would give guides on how parents should raise their children. One of the things that was recommended, don't hug your children. Because if you hug your child, they might have ideas about being an individual, and we're trying to build communism here, which is, that's why we're all emotionally in the way that we are. This is a moment of high five, right?
I wasn't
Isn't
in the
it?
communism. I'm not allowed a high five.
Yeah. That, eating potatoes for lunch, breakfast, and dinner,
I still love potatoes.
Yeah. Putting dill on top of it, going like, oh, wow, look at the spices that we have here. Yeah. But this is the thing. I don't believe in national identity and culture. I think we're just, it's a big melting pot. There's very broad influences, we all eat the same food, but we call it different thing, and we're like, no, it's national. I'm like, calm down. Everybody has dumplings. Yeah.
Schnitzel, Milanese.
Yeah, like the dumplings from all the way from Asia, brought in through the Silk Road, all the way to Europe, all the way to Italy. In Italy, you go eat Chinese dumplings, and they're called ravioli orientali. Because they're like, oh no, this has to be our culture. It's the thing that I've learned over the last year traveling to these many places is that people, in a very disappointing way, are so similar. Because you think that you're going to meet people that are, oh, wow, you're going to meet a new type of person. And then, you're like one of my friends from home, and you're like one of the people that I knew, and he's like also someone I used to know. It's so disappointing that people are not that different. Yeah, but we pretend we have these stories about ourselves. So like, our great-grandfather did this, and like, who cares? Anyway.
But it's a bit controversial, don't you think? Because you criticize communism, I support that, and then you say, oh, I'm against nationalism.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I think the problem here is not the Ukrainians coming together as Ukrainians. I think the Russians coming in and telling Ukrainians that they're not Ukrainians. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
So it's also nationalism on the other side. And it's very stark, very aggressive, very...
Well, there is a common, I think, misconception, because when we in Ukraine say about nationalism, we are just talking about standing out from Russia, so we have our own nation. But
you're constructing that as you're going. So that's what I find interesting. That all of this identity has a beginning. So if it has a beginning, it means that it started with something. So same Romania, same Slovakia, same UK, same everywhere you go. Kazakhstan, they're all trying to step away from the Soviet Union and the way that history was reshaped and rewritten by the Soviets. So I totally understand that. At the same time, I understand why it's happening. I understand why sometimes people are drawn to it. But from my experience coming here and going to Vietnam and going to Iceland, we're still eating food and drinking coffee and, want to hug our family and want to, have dreams and eat pastries. I love pastries, and I think everybody does. You go everywhere, they have pastries, and I'm like, good for you. You all listen to the same music. You go, being a comedian is very interesting because you go to places and you meet people that you've never met before. Immediately you're like, oh, you like Norm Macdonald. Oh, you like Doug Stanhope. Oh, you like Louis C.K. Oh, you like this guy. You like this person. Oh, and immediately you have a connection.
You've been on the road for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to go on such a huge expedition?
Yeah.
What drawn you to it?
Pandemic. Yeah, so I was in the middle of a tour already, and then the pandemic started, and I was stuck in London for like 3 months, and I thought like, I can't live my life just waiting for the day to pass. And as soon as borders open, I gave everything away, and I've been living out of a backpack since.
But at the time you were living in London, or you were?
Yeah, I was living in London, and from London I was going into Europe doing shows. I was doing the club circuit in the UK. I was going to Glee Club Cardiff to be paid £65, and it would cost me $75 to be there. So I'm like, what am I doing this?
Trains are expensive.
Sounds like England.
Yeah. So I was like, what am I doing? And then I just started, learning how to produce my own shows and start small and do little bars and little spaces, whatever I could do a show, and things grew, and then I started posting stuff online, and then people started finding it funny, and I got better at talking to the audience, and Yeah, it's all a learning curve.
Yesterday. Your
That's very
audience
kind.
work was. I was with a friend, and afterwards she said, "Do you think that was staged? His connection between the blue and the yellow and the was just so perfect."
Yeah.
The contrast color guy fixing things. It was amazing.
Oh yeah, I was very happy with because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, I actually try not to talk to anybody before the show. Sometimes people come to me because they know that I talk to the audience. They come to me and tell me, "Oh, talk to my friend. He's from this place and he does this," and I'm like, "Oh, you've ruined the whole thing." Because there's no fun into knowing and having things prepared. The whole fun is to see where things are going with them. Because it's a conversation. If it's not a conversation, then it just feels weird. Everybody can tell that it's weird. I'm not enjoying it. They're not enjoying it. It's just, it has to happen in the moment.
What was the most embarrassing situation that's happened to you? Like, maybe that joke that you regretted. Did you went off stage saying like, "Oh God, it was
every day.
Okay.
Yeah. Yesterday was.
Yeah, every day I say stuff where I'm losing. No, I said some stuff last night where I was like, okay, this is too much. Okay, fair enough.
Was it the girl, the 28-year-old girl who you called a babushka?
No, it was America and Israel.
Okay. Because there was no Israeli in the room, so you couldn't.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. Even if they come from like countries that the local country is an enemy of. Sometimes people. India. The context of President Modi is he's helping Putin, financially for the war. Yet there was an Indian lady who was very nice. She was working in humanitarian support. She was very nice. She was. Yeah, this is the thing. People are individuals.
He guessed customer support. She said humanitarian support.
Yeah.
No, I could also advocate for that. I was in Hungary, and I had like a layover there for a day, and I was not sure how I'm feeling about being in Budapest. And first person I met, they were like, "Oh my God, we are so sorry about our government."
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Because it's important to get out of the bubble. Obviously, in Ukraine, not everyone can do that for obvious reasons, but I could, and it's very actually. Sobering.
Yeah.
Also, that people don't equal their government.
Absolutely, and that's where this whole nationalism thing is started for me. Because there are people who are supporting the government, and that's when they become the stereotype of that country. But most people are, decent people. So yeah, it was a very strange realization of that type when I first came here, because in the last probably year I've gotten a lot of very aggressive messages from Ukrainians who are pro-Israel, and I was like, "Oh, what is happening?" And then I came here and I met people and I was like, "Oh, okay, it's good. Things have not. They haven't gone crazy." Yeah.
Social media is quite fucked up too. I mean, you can get very inboxed just being in the country without social media, but with Instagram, Twitter especially.
Oh, Twitter is a cesspool.
So toxic. I just also try to.
But see, sometimes people follow me for one video and then they see another video that disagrees with their political views, and they're like, "What?" Yeah.
Have you ever been met outside of the venue and like?
No, I've had a lot of. Many times.
Have you got beaten?
No.
Do you know how to fight?
I learned here from the Ukrainians. I have the Ukrainians at the show, and they're gonna fight for me.
The show.
No, yes. Some I don't know. Some.
Yeah, of course. I say whatever comes to my mouth.
He sends George and Fyodor out first. Check.
Yeah.
Check everything's fine. Yeah. Then jump in the taxi.
Yeah. Of course. Many. Yeah. And specifically from very aggressive countries. People who come from very aggressive countries.
Is UK an aggressive country?
No, not really. The British, because this is the thing. There's a huge difference between joking about like Ukrainians, Estonians, Romanians. It's like, "Oh, you're poor, you have nothing, whatever." And the people are like, "Oh, yeah, we are poor." But what are the jokes about Brits? "Oh, you used to own half the world." And they're like, "Oh, tell us more." How bad we were,
Victor, you said in last night's show, I was at your show last night, wonderful show, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
You said that all the proceeds so none of the comedians were taking payment, not even the guests, not yourself, but all the proceeds were going to two charities.
Yeah, we came here on our own money, just to kind of, all the money we make out of the shows to send them to charities. The two charities that we work with are Voices of Children, which is a charity in East Ukraine that works with children dealing with trauma of war, because I think children are probably the most affected in a way that they're not aware of. I think what is happening around the children, they probably don't understand what's happening, but they're very affected by what's happening. So we thought that this is an appropriate place to give our money to. And the other one is Serious Animal Shelter. Fedor is a big fan of this shelter, so basically this is his charity that we're donating for. He's worked with them before. He came to Ukraine a few months into the full-scale invasion 2 years ago in the summer. And he went to Serious Animal Shelter, and he saw that they were completely overwhelmed with how many pets they had. Over 3,000. I think they still have 3,000. Pets are coming and going. So we thought these are two charities that are, and two sectors that are probably overlooked by most internationals who are donating to Ukraine. Most, from what I've seen, most people donate for the war effort for the army. We decided to stick with the civilians. This is my approach to all of these things. Stick with civilians. I'm here to support the Ukrainian people.
Did you have a chance to meet some of those children?
No, it'd be weird. I'm a grown man. Hey, meet the children. Right? Yeah. No. I think we met some people from the charity. Some people from Voices of Children have come to the shows, and they've been very kind, and they gave us some stuff that we managed to auction last night.
Yesterday I noticed there was a couple of cameras. Are you filming? Is there going to be a special released?
Not a special, but we're gonna probably put some clips up from the show, whatever is appropriate. We're gonna add it to the little documentary that George Deguma and I are making about this whole journey into Ukraine, to kind of give a human insight into what is happening here. Because I think the stories on the news, they're very sensational. But there's no human element to it. And I think what we're going to try to do is to kind of go like, hey, look, there's people, and this is what they're doing, and this is how the life is, and this is how they're dealing with it. And, so that's what the cameras are for.
Okay. And generally, a special in general from all your tour, is there going to be?
I have so much material online. It's like people are not going, like, we need more.
We need a nice 1 hour long Victor night.
I think like everyone is doing specials now, and it's very strange because it has to be special. When the people that started doing stand-up professionally, the ones that we all admire, started doing special, they were, an event. That something special was happening. That Carlin was putting out an hour, or Pryor was putting out an hour. But now it feels like it's a thing to do every year, and everybody has specials online.
So easy. It became so easy to make with camera, phone.
So I have no interest at the moment. I'm going after this interview. I'm going to the Flixbus station and going to Moldova. Then I'm going home for like a few days, and then back on the road after Christmas.
Paris.
What was the last time you've been home?
Last year, December. I go for Christmas, to visit my mom.
By the way, I want to add, I'm just actually curious, because there was a couple of cases when Russian rockets or drones, they flew over Romania. Yeah. So like your parents, for example, if I may ask, what do they think? Yeah, what's the attitude towards Ukraine? As a normal people who are not, I don't know, in the TV or.
I think the problem is Russian involvement. In Romania, we had an election that we had to cancel because of Russian money into Romanian politics, which never happened to this extent before. At least so obviously. The guy who won the first round, he officially stated that he has zero money for the campaign. That's the stupidest thing you can do. You know what I mean? Because he had thousands of Russian bots working for him, and all the posting farms and from Russia and all the TikTok thing. So huge money went into his campaign, but officially he said that he has zero. And the Romanian authorities were like, hey man, this is this is Eastern Europe, but this is ridiculous. So we had to cancel because of Russian involvement, which we can feel it more and more politicians, because the politicians don't stand for anything, so they will say whatever they have to say to get money. So if money comes from Russia, they'll say whatever Russia wants to say.
Yeah, but I mean like regular just Romanians, normal dudes, like, I don't know, Lux.
At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, a lot of Romanians have been very supportive. They went to the border, they helped. So I think it's a common threat. The big bear is a conscious threat for everybody. Of course, there's extremes. There's all sorts of territorial disputes with Romania and Ukraine. What about Chernovitz? What about everybody? Basarabia. There's a square here. It's we think it's ours. You guys think it's yours. Everybody thinks it's like. So this is.
Do we?
I don't know. I don't
know. I also haven't heard much.
It's not a reason to fight over stuff like this. Yeah. As long as people can, have dogs in their yard and raise their geese, and who cares?
And eat potatoes with dill.
Yeah. I like that. That was the reference that stuck with you, the dill on the potatoes.
I'm so deeply traumatized. Potato is my favorite food.
Yeah.
Really. All right.
Yeah. One last question. In Moldova, would you perform in the Romanian language?
No, in English. Everywhere I go in English, because the stuff that I do are for the international community. So if it's in Romanian and I do the same things, it's just kind of weird to talk about. Because I talk about this concept of nation. And it's very strange to talk to one type of people in the room. But when there's multiple people, I can show, hey, look, this person that's from the other side of the planet laughed at the same joke. So here, you see, they're here. You can see that because this might seem benign and just banal for someone from the UK who has lived in a multinational, multicultural type of environment where these conversations have been had. But nobody talks about multiculturalism in Romania, you know what I mean? We're still unaware of what happened to the Roma community, you know what I mean, throughout history. We're not talking about anything. Romania is very, everybody in Eastern Europe, very nationalistic to a point where it's uncomfortably, so I think it's important to remind people like, hey, we keep talking about all of these things, but who are we? That's what I find interesting right now. That's why I came here and did only crowd work, because this is the reaction if I actually do what I want, if I talk about what I want to talk about, And I'm. Yeah.
Well, did you expect me to laugh?
Yes.
I'm silent.
I want to see a show where you're talking about what you want to talk about. Do I have to come with you to on the Flixbus?
Yeah. You need to come to Chisinau. But it's been lovely experience. I'm sorry you guys are going through what you're going through. You don't deserve this. Nobody does. And I'm here for the people. So I hope the people had a good time at the shows. I hope they got a little bit of hope that, people are starting to come from outside, and things are happening. And yeah.
People did have a great time at your show. I can attest to that.
Yeah, and I hope the kids and the pets and everybody's gonna be fine.
Yes.
Yeah. So
thank you so much.
Thank you to the Ukrainians.